Right, yeah, so not doing any vlog this week because I've been doing it for a while now. I'm just doing it every other week, but it's now early April, so I thought it would be a good opportunity just to do kind of like a review of the year so far, 2022. So I'm going to call it the quarter one review, which sounds very sort of official and financial. So obviously the financial sort of thing in business, people talk about quarters, they don't in business. So this is quarter one of the calendar year, so January, February, March. So I'm just going to give it a bit of structure. I'm going to go through kind of end of last year and what I was kind of expecting from the start of this year. So yeah, my expectations, what I was hoping for, and then basically what's happened, and why I think what's happened. I don't really know. It's a lot of uncertainty, I think, at the moment, and it's been a disappointing start to the year in general, and I don't really know why, which is obviously a concern. And then at the end, I'm just going to kind of my current thoughts on my plans for the year and how the start of the year has affected my plans for the rest of the year. Probably a few months ago now, I did kind of like where I'm at, and about 2022 is going to be make or break year for me as an owner driver courier. So how the first part of the year has affected that. So just to go through to end of 2021, my expectations. So I found last year was like, early part of last year was a real struggle, but we're in a COVID lockdown, like over Christmas 2020 would have been, wasn't it? And it kind of like hung over into January, February that year. And then it did pick up sort of like March, April last year. So I have actually got in my little black book all my sort of figures. I should have really maybe had a look at this before I start filming. But yeah, I've got all the figures at the back, you see now, so I can actually look back. So let's have a look. For beginning of April last year, yeah, so that's not a full week. So the week commencing 12th of April last year, which is probably like second week of April, so next week, I did 5 days and I averaged 997 for the week, so just under £200 a day. And then basically from 19th of April, my average earnings a day were just under 220, and then just over 200, and then by beginning of May 233 a day, and it kind of like picked up from this time of year. So hopefully it does that now, because it's been really disappointing. And then last summer was really busy, particularly late June into August, and then there was like a step change into September, which I never really understood. And then it was pretty, not disappointingly quiet, I'd say, for the time of year, September till November. And I wasn't quite doing £150 profit a day when I was in tramping mode, which was below what I want really. That was my target. And then it picked up a bit for Christmas, but not massively. So I was doing all right in December up until Christmas. So that was the end of 22, end of 2021, obviously. So I was going into this year thinking, well, it didn't really pick up much for Christmas, and it's not sort of busy the last quarter of 2021 compared to what it was in the summer. So hopefully the CX, isn't going to die off too much in the new year, because you always get a new year lull in all transport. It's not, a steady industry to be in. So, if you're an owner driver courier, you're probably going to be quieter, not earn so much. So you obviously have to factor that in. But yeah, I've not been doing this that long myself. I set up just before COVID, about a month before COVID hit, the first lockdown. So yeah, I don't know normal times, you see. So this is where I'm kind of asking what people are more experienced think of it at the moment. So that's my expectations going into this year. But sadly, that was quite optimistic, I think. Well, it's been proven to be optimistic about not dying off too much after Christmas, because it did. Went really quiet, and it's not really picked up. I've had the odd decent day, like £300 plus day. I had the odd decent week. I think I did a 4-day week where I averaged nearly £200 or takings a day, and not too bad for morale. That was in January. Then I've had other weeks like last week when I did a vlog, and I did work Tuesday. I didn't work Monday because I just had stuff to do. This week I won't go into too much. And then Tuesday, Wednesday I was on the CX, and it was dire really. Did one job down to the south coast for 145 quid, and it was really quiet around Portsmouth way the morning after. So I didn't really want to go to London, but I took a job like 78 quid for 67 miles, medium wheelbase, to sort of Richmond area of London, and then that was all I got all day. There were jobs in London, but not particularly that busy, and there's so much competition there. And it got to like 5:30, and I just thought, stuff it, I've had enough. I drove home empty, and I've been doing Amazon yesterday and today, so probably earned more yesterday, or earn more as much these 2 days as I did, probably more than I did them 2 days in the van, the way it went in the van. So it's really hit and miss, and I usually find when you're tramping, so I set off beginning of the week, usually Monday morning, and then it's not until Friday that I have to get home. So between Monday and Thursday, I'm very flexible with where I go. So that's where tramping really pays off. And when it gets a bit quiet, you can probably still make decent money because you can bid on lots of jobs. You're not constrained to like just jobs going towards your home area. But even at the moment, it's just not enough. Even with tramping, it's not enough to make the van at the moment pay so far this year. So I have to say, of course, if you don't follow my channel that much, I am 100% in the van subcontracting. So when you subcontract the backloads, I do backloads all the time, or backload rate jobs I should call it, because all the companies on the CX, I think you have to be a transport company to join the CX to subscribe. I think that's how they work it. General end customers, so where I'm sat now, this company over here that makes fabricated steel parts, they're not a transport company, they make architectural steel or whatever, they can't join the CX. I think that's how it works. Whoever does the jobs for them, the transport for them, provider, can join the CX. So whoever does the transport, if you can do jobs, you could do a pickup from this location, but it will be subbing to whoever's got the actual contract or does their transport. I think that's how the CX work it, because I've been doing it a long time. I had jobs for probably 100 plus shippers, as they call them, people who sell jobs from the CX. None of them, well, they've all been transport companies. So I'm guessing it's just a CX thing. You have to be a transport company to join it. It's a transport exchange group at the end of the day. So you run the CX and the HX. So that stay the same. I've gone into before why I'm not currently looking for my own customers, so I won't go over that ground again, mainly because I plan to relocate this year. So I thought, why is it so quiet? So one thing it could be is COVID. So we haven't had lockdowns for a long time. There's no real restrictions on life now in general at all. But I think maybe it's had a knock-on effect in general on the economy. And early part of last year, there was a lot of actual COVID jobs, like collecting COVID samples from private addresses and taking them to labs. And quite often they were like long jobs, evening jobs. One jiffy bag with some samples in it, and it's like regular jobs all the time. So I was kind of like making money up with evening jobs, and they were long days, of course, but that's kind of, you have to do that sometimes. So that's what I was doing. So there's not so many of them now. So the COVID jobs have died off. I don't think the normal economy or whatever has picked up to replace it. Normal seasonality, so like say transport in general gets quieter, but I think any load board where ad hoc loads are advertised, so such as the main one, the one I use is the Courier Exchange. I'm sure it'd be the same if you're in a truck on a haulage exchange. And there's other ones which I'll come to, like Same Day Courier Network and Courier Market, I think the other one's called. The thing is with these, I think the swing between like busy periods and quiet periods is more on them kind of boards, because I mentioned this before, you got to think most people who post jobs, there'll be transport companies or courier companies. I think the majority of them will have their own fleet of vans with their own drivers that drive them, their employees, and then they'll have quite possibly owner drivers who are dedicated to them. So that's their plan A and plan B, if you like. And then it's only really extra work that they can't cover with that plan A and plan B that gets put onto a load board ad hoc jobs like the courier exchange. That's plan C. So when it goes busy, quieter, they all get quieter. But I think you'll see more of a difference, more of a swing between busy and quiet periods when you're doing ad hoc subcontractor loads, which is what I do. So yeah, you're always going to get more like volatility, more fluctuation, more swing or whatever between busy and quiet periods if you rely, like I do, 100% for thing. That's the downside of it. There are plenty of plus sides in terms of flexibility and all that kind of stuff, and when it is busy you can make really good money, but when it's quiet it's pretty tough. And other platforms, so there are other platforms out there. So in terms of the courier market, I think, you know, the courier exchange is kind of not a monopoly, but it's kind of, because it's got the amount of loads on there, I wouldn't say it's got the market cornered, but it kind of has. It's because it's busy, it is busy, if you know what I mean, because there are plenty of people posting loads on there, more people subscribe kind of thing, and it kind of, like, you know, gets momentum. There's a bit of a snowball effect, so it's harder for other platforms, especially new ones, to get going, because they might, you know, get going but they need to get loads on there in order to get the drivers in, and then it's kind of maybe slow progress. But maybe some of the other ones that I mentioned, Same Day Courier Network, Courier Market, any others you know of, if anyone thinks anyone's on them or tried them and thinks they've picked up and are worth paying for and stuff, please let me know in the comments, for me or anyone else. It's a case of, do I try and broaden my reach by subscribing to some other ones? Maybe, don't know. From what I've actually read about it and stuff, and questions I've asked in online forums, they're not very good at it either. It's just quiet at the moment. Yeah, so that's kind of what my expectations were for the first part of the year and how it's turned out. Like I say, very disappointing. I don't really understand why it's quite this busy, quiet, because when I compare this to the first month I had on CX, so March 2020, before lockdown started, you know, I was new, I had no feedback, I was in a short wheelbase van then, but I could do some medium wheelbase loads, so I had my load settings set to up to medium wheelbase, whereas now I've got it up to long wheelbase, because I'm obviously now in a long wheelbase van, and long wheelbase is the second busiest vehicle category size after small van. But like, when I think back to then, like early March, mid-March 2020, I was, you know, sat trying to keep up with the job feed. The jobs was pinging through, you know, it was like probably every job pinging up every 3 or 4 seconds, you know what I mean? Whereas now, similar times a day, you might maybe get 3 or 4 a minute, maybe, if that, in like busy periods in the morning. Whereas probably, yeah, before it was more like 15, maybe 10, 15, 20 a minute, you know, like in the mornings, particularly like Thursday, Friday. It's just not as many jobs on there. So again, on these online forums and stuff, there's a lot of talk, oh, its problems are people are working for peanuts, and I think that, you know, that happens, particularly when it's quiet, because people think the only way I can win this job is to go in cheap. Especially you got people out there who are, you know, desperate for money, or you've got the van on lease or whatever, it's costing them money if the van's sat there. Whereas if I sit now and do something else, it's costing me the fixed costs on the van, but you know, I'm not putting miles on it. The van's not depreciating in value so much because I'm not putting miles on it. I'm not wearing the tyres out. Whereas if you're on lease, you're paying regardless, busy or quiet. And I think there are some people out there possibly who are in that position, and I imagine they're just trying to get any money they can in. It's kind of like damage limitation. I would never have set up if I had to lease a van, or if I didn't have money to buy a reasonable condition van. I had savings. Just I've always been a bit of a saver, and it kind of pays off. I mean, that's fancy. That Tesla over there. Look at the doors on it. They open up like that. I think that's a Tesla. It's nuts. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so I wouldn't have set up personally like that, but coming back to that, that's kind of a problem, but that's not the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is there was obviously way more people looking for work than there are jobs. So it's a really unbalanced market on the CX now. You've got, it comes down to it's just too quiet. There's not enough jobs being posted. So that's why the rates are low, you know. So people do quote low because they're desperate, I think a lot of people like to say. But it just comes down to there's just not enough work at the moment to go around. So yeah, I don't know, is the CX maybe in decline? Other platforms getting more of the market share, or is it just dead quiet? Just got to see this out. Hopefully when it gets to Easter now, it will pick up a bit. But I'm kind of, that's how it's gone relative to my expectations. And then current thoughts about the future and how this sort of ties in with that video I did about 2022, make or break a year for me. I thought it might be tough beginning of the year. It's been way tougher. That's kind of really not my motivation to carry on. So I said my plan B was to do my truck licenses, class 1, and just get a pay-as-you-earn job tramping. And it's kind of making me think now, yeah, just crack on with that. It'll be a new challenge, and then maybe in the future become a owner driver in a truck. But I've looked into it, and the money I could earn as a tramper doing class 1, once you take in all the cash-free allowances, because they do like night out money, and some of them do meal allowance and stuff, which is tax-free, you could probably earn the equivalent salary of about £45,000+. And there's no, even on a good year, I'm not going to use that in a van with tramping, do that in a van with tramping. But as I went through before, if I got some of my own customers, maybe I could do a lot better and keep the flexibility to some degree. But to be honest with you, the only thing that's stopping me now is going full bore for the trucks thing right now is, as I mentioned before, I plan to, now we're into the new tax year, I plan to start applying for mortgages because I can do my books, do my tax return for the year just ended, 2021, 2022. So if I'm applying for a mortgage, I kind of need to stay self-employed until I sort out a house, or a flat, it's more likely to be, and then I can do that, go that route. But if it wasn't for that now, I think I'd be just going straight into the trucks, to be honest. Right now I've kind of had enough, but that's where I'm at. Hopefully it picks up in Easter time, which is very soon, next weekend, as it did kind of last year. But last year I thought it was more down to restrictions being lifted. So yeah, quite a lot to get on with the next few months in terms of personal stuff, sorting a house and a flat, something to my own place to live in North Wales. Yeah, please put comments below how you think it's got, why you think it's so quiet. Has the work just gone elsewhere, or is it just less work, or are companies using more like their own drivers as their own vans, or using more permanent subbies, or to them like dedicated, and putting less work ad hoc for some reason. Interested to know what other people's thoughts and theories are on this, because especially those who've been doing a lot longer. How does this start of this year compare to like years before COVID? So 2019, 2018, in terms of particularly like number of jobs on the CX and the sort of going rates people are getting on there, because the going rate's obviously gone down. So yeah, cheers for watching. I look forward to reading your comments.